welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. Got a good show today. Another one talking about our guy who just keeps giving us stuff to talk about, JJ Redick, and some NBA basketball. So before we get to that, you know what time it is. If you haven't already, please click that subscribe, that like, and that notification bell so you're always aware when new episodes come out. You can stay up to date on this content we're getting. If you want the audio-only version of the podcast, go ahead, open up your audio podcast platform, type in the Format Podcast, do a little search. We should come up. Make sure you please give us that 5-star review if you enjoy the content, and leave us a comment, either on your audio podcast platform or right here on YouTube. Love the interaction, and I try to get back to each and every comment. If I haven't gotten back to your comment, please forgive me. I'm still going through them, and I try to answer them as fast as I get them. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about JJ Redick. Let's get to it. So this guy, he since he retired, and he's been a full-time basketball analyst with ESPN and coming up on First Take, he has been getting himself into some, I'm going to say, proverbial hot water with his takes on players of the past that many have deemed pretty disrespectful. So about a year ago, this kind of started up when he was on with Stephen A. and Mad Dog Russo, and they were talking about Chris Paul, and I believe Mad Dog said that Bob Cousy was better than Chris Paul, and JJ Redick couldn't believe it. He really could have handled this differently. He basically said Chris Paul was playing against plumbers and firemen. Let's go ahead and check that clip out, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Bob Cousy couldn't dribble with his left hand. Cousy won championships when there were 8 teams in the NBA and you had to win 2 playoff series. Let's celebrate Bob Cousy in his era, but you can't compare pre-1980 with
yes, you can.
with the modern
Yes, you
NBA.
can.
No, you cannot. Great players could play in any era. There's no doubt about that. You know, he was being guarded by plumbers and firemen.
So, quick little bit of background. If we're unsure why JJ Redick would have said something like that, we hear the plumber narrative constantly about players of the past. It's not just saying that the players weren't good. It's for the fact that in the early days of the NBA, players weren't making as nearly the money that they make now. So they had to get jobs, regular jobs in the offseason from playing basketball. So a lot of guys were plumbers or firemen. The great Elgin Baylor, the Hall of Famer, actually at one point was a U.S. Army reservist while he was playing in the NBA. Crazy, right? But the money wasn't like it is today. And see, this is where I think a lot of guys get upset, a lot of guys from the past with JJ Redick, or people of his ilk, and people of the younger generations who don't respect the past, because the amount of money that they're making is built on the backs and the shoulders of those who came before. But anyway, this is kind of where it started in terms of JJ Redick and him getting into it with the quote unquote old heads, right? So moving forward, then of course you had the issue, and I talked about this ad nauseum with JJ Redick and the Stephen Curry, Larry Bird comments. If you want more in depth on that, you can go back and check it out a few episodes back. We discussed that. So first we had that, JJ Redick being what many deemed as disrespectful to Larry Legend. And then Dominique Wilkins followed up and he gave his commentary on that. We discussed that as well. And now the logo himself is jumping into the fray to kind of respond to that. Now, Jerry West, he was pretty calm. He didn't go nuts about it, but he definitely made his feelings known on the topic. Let's go ahead and listen to some of what he had to say. Then we'll get back to that.
Well, obviously the game is completely different. The athletes are completely different. And I know JJ just a little bit. He's a very smart kid and everything. But tell me what his career looked like. What did he do that determined games? He averaged 12 points a game in the league. Somewhere along the way, numbers count. At that point in time, the players aren't what they used to be. JJ certainly wasn't going to guard the elite players. And so you can nitpick anyone. And I'm not, the only reason I'm talking about him is because he was not an elite player, but he was a very good player. But he had a place on the team because of his ability to shoot the ball. My era, I was an athlete way before my time. I had a huge vertical. Probably no one in the league was much faster than me. And certainly the competitive part of it, I would put myself among any player that played the game today also. Winning is all that matters. That's what drove me. And I subtly got better every year. We didn't have the facilities to get better. We had to work in the summers to support our family. But JJ should be very thankful that he's made as much money as he's made. And Bob Cousy, who I played against a couple of years, not very long, I just think it's very disrespectful myself.
Okay, so there you heard Jerry West, the logo himself. We heard his comments. Now, we know Jerry West isn't just some guy, right? Jerry West is one of the greatest players of all time. He also is one of the greatest executives of all time. He is basically just one of the greatest NBA figures of all time. Probably, you know, on that short list of greatest NBA figures, probably, you know, just a little bit below your Michael Jordans and your Bill Russells and your maybe Wilt Chamberlain's, Kareem's, and Jerry West and Magic. Jerry West is either right there or right below those guys in terms of, because you look at what he's done, again, as a player and an executive, and it's undeniable. Anyway, this is just, you know, again, I said it before, JJ Redick, I totally get it. You played in this era, you feel a need to defend your era. And oddly enough, for a guy who's a player, your reliance on analytics is very strange. But I guess the fact that JJ Redick was an elite sniper for most of his career, whether it's college all the way through the NBA, in terms of the evolution of analytics and how it affects the way the game is played, he was a guy who greatly benefited from that, being an elite three-point marksman for the majority of his career. So he is going to, I guess, really defend that. He's going to defend that mindset, and he's going to defend the era that he played in. And I have no problem with that. But that doesn't mean that you have to be delusional and disrespectful to the guys who came before you. So again, it comes down to the amount of money you made, the lifestyle you live, the career that you had. All that came from the giants, literally, whose shoulders had to be stood on to get to this point. So it's just so odd to me that this generation, in terms of the players as well as the fans coming up now, feel the need to denigrate those that came before them in order to lift up their own. And what I don't get and what they don't get, it's kind of odd to me that they don't see it, is when you have to denigrate those that came before you in order to raise up those that are here now and are coming up. Doesn't that just make the argument that these guys currently aren't good enough to stand on their own merit, because you have to use the other things to try and take down the guys who are in that previous position? It's kind of strange. But yeah, JJ Redick, man, he just keeps giving us more and more, and we love it. You know, he's probably going to be a guy that is going to continue to give us content to make and content to talk about. But I love the fact that you're seeing some of the quote unquote old heads. Bob Cousy responded, and one of the things he said was, you know, I played against plumbers and firemen. I guess those were the best plumbers and firemen in the world. And obviously, if you watch the Bob Cousy highlights, things look very different. The game looks very different. But you go back and watch, there's a reason they called that guy Houdini of the hardwood, right? Because he was pulling magic tricks before Pistol Pete and before Magic Johnson. He was out there and he's pushing the rock on the break, and he's doing no look and behind the backs and overhead hook passes and skip passes and bounce passes through traffic. He's doing all that stuff before that stuff became popular, before it became in vogue, right? He's doing all that. And so yes, it doesn't look like it's going to look today. But the fact is, he was the guy who made all that stuff popular and made all that stuff possible. So like, the disrespect for it is amazing. Everything has to come from somewhere, right? Everything has to come from somewhere. So we got to stop acting like the stuff that's happening now is where it came from and the first time the stuff was ever invented. Now, I know that oftentimes we may see something and we say, wow, I've never seen that before. That may be true on its face. But again, it all has to be rooted in something. Magic Johnson would tell you that when he was coming up, he used to watch some of the stuff Pistol Pete would do. Now, we all can say, if we saw Magic, like, wow, I've never seen anyone pass like that before Magic. I've never seen anyone pass like that after Magic. True. But then Jason Kidd came up, and some of the things he was doing, right, was based in what Magic was doing. So we look at it, some of the things that LeBron was doing are based in some of the stuff those guys are doing. Like I said, Magic will tell you some of the stuff he was doing was based in what Pistol Pete was doing. But as guys come up, they're putting their own flair on things, right? They're putting their own spin on it. So anyway, yeah, the point I'm trying to make, man, we got to stop disrespecting those who came before, especially JJ Redick. And these guys are going to keep coming after him if he keeps saying these things, but that's fine. It gives us stuff to talk about. It gives us context and, excuse me, content, not context. But yeah, what I want to know from you, and you can leave it in the comment section. Do you think JJ Redick is right in what he says when he disrespects these players of the past? Or do you think it's disrespectful at all? Do you think he's just giving his opinion and saying what you feel is true? Go ahead, leave it in the comment section. Can't wait to hear from you. And I'm out. Peace.